I'm very excited to share with you a brand new feature. This is a brand new thing that now you can do with ChatGPT. So this feature has been available to ChatGPT Plus for about a month now, but now it's freely available to everyone. So that's why I'm sharing it with you at this time. So what we do is we go into ChatGPT, and then we click on right by our name with the three dots there. And then within that, you can click on custom instructions. So in clicking on custom instructions, you'll get shown this little interface where you can put in some specific information. For a more detailed explanation of this, you can go to the OpenAI website. They have a custom instructions for ChatGPT page that's dedicated to this, where they talk about some different parts of this. And what's really cool is if we go in and start reading a little bit more, one of the examples they have is specifically dealing with academia. So that's interesting that they were thinking about instruction as part of this feature. Within custom instructions, one of the questions is, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? So in this example, they state, I work on science education programs for third grade students. And then for the question of how would you like ChatGPT to respond, it states, when discussing potential solutions for work-related items, present the information in a table format outlining the pros and cons of each option, allowing for easier comparison and decision-making. This is very interesting because then the results are organized exactly how they wanted. So the question posed then would be to ChatGPT would be, what would be 3 important things to teach about the moon? So the response is teaching third grade students, because remember, the system now remembered what was given before within that custom instruction. Because remember, the person said that I work on science education programs for third grade students. So it remembered that, and then it incorporated that into its answer. So it says teaching third grade students about the moon involves several core concepts. Here are the 3 key concepts to consider: phases of the moon's relationship with the Earth, physical features of the moon. The way that it presents the information is in the table, just like it asked, and then it presents the topics, it gives pros, and it gives cons. There's then also some additional information dealing with plugins, beta, safety information, which is great, but I'm very excited to get right into it. So let's go and look at an actual example where I'm going through and using it. So I open up my ChatGPT interface and I pose it a question, right? So again, I haven't done any custom instructions yet, but let's just see what I would get regularly using ChatGPT. So I'm going to pose it this question. What are some important things I should do with my class on the first day of school? Basic question, and it gives me some, overall great, nice results. Create a welcoming environment, introduce yourself, learn student names, icebreakers, set clear expectations, outline the course class. Okay, this is great in general, right? But I want something more specific to me for who I am as an individual. So this is where I would do the custom instructions. So again, I would go to my name, click on the 3 dots there, and then I would click on customs instructions. From there, this would pop up, my customs instructions interface. So I would answer the question, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? So some ideas that you could put in there are answering these questions of, where are you based? What do you do for work? What are your hobbies or interests? What subjects can you talk about for hours? What are some goals you have? So I decided to go ahead and answer all of those questions. So I said, I'm a university lecturer, manager of assessment and compliance, and director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. I teach professional communications to college students. My hobbies are AI in education, instructional methodologies, instructional technologies, and customer experience. I can talk a lot about pedagogy and the need for AI literacy. And then my goal is to be the best instructor and presenter possible. Okay, so that's what I would like ChatGPT to know about me to provide better responses. Now, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? So for that, some of the thought starters that it suggests would be things like, how formal or casual should ChatGPT be? How long or short should responses generally be? How do you want to be addressed? And should ChatGPT have opinions on topics or remain neutral? So again, I decided to answer all of those questions, and I put present information in a formal academic tone, Responses should be concise and no longer than 1 page. When logical, put information in a table with pros and cons. Address me as Brent A. Anders, and have opinions on topics, but provide both sides of an argument when logical. The other thing is be sure that once you put in all that information, you need to save it. And again, here it's really cool in that you can save it and then you can also enable for new chats. So this is on by default. That means that all future chats will be using this custom information. You can decide, you can always come back and turn this off and toggle it on and off whenever you want, but it retains this information so you can use it when you want it. So this is nice if you're asking professional type questions or when you're just playing around and you don't necessarily want it to use that. So again, that's a nice little added feature as well. So let's go back into ChatGPT and pose it the exact same question, now using our customs instructions. So I'm saying, what are some important things I should do with my class on the first day of school? Now it's going to use those customs instructions and then give us a completely different result here. So now it's saying, dear Mr. Anders, communicating a new academic term demands thoughtful planning and execution, particularly on the inaugural day of class. Your expertise in instructional methodologies and professional communication equips you to cultivate an engaging and effective learning environment. Here are key recommendations for a successful first day. You can see now that it's presenting me the information in a completely different way, and it's geared more towards me as a university instructor. So now I have pros and cons. It's saying establishing a welcome atmosphere, foster students' comfort and engagement. That's a pro. A con is that this may consume valuable time. Another thing, it says course introduction and expectations. So pros, this clarifies the course objectives and outcomes. Cons, this may be information overload. Talks about icebreakers, which is great because it encourages interaction and camaraderie, but it might not be suitable for all class sizes. Again, very good. And this is geared a bit more towards university level. And you can see that the tone is a bit more academic. So again, this is using that instructional, that custom instruction. And it's interesting too, there's some other things here that one of the examples or one of the recommendations is to highlight AI relevance. So a pro would be to capture student interest and relevance. Con may overshadow other aspects. So this is interesting because now it's using part of the custom instruction where I talked about how this is part of my field, this is my research interest, this is my hobby. So it's incorporating that. I don't necessarily want that. So that's something to keep in mind as far as how it's using everything that you put within that custom instruction. So let's try another one though. Let's try another example. So in this example, I'm going to ask it, what would be the best way for me to teach students about the importance of verbal communication? Okay, so I put that in there. It's going to use, again, the customs instructions. And now it's presenting me this information. It's saying, Brent A. Anders, as a university lecturer specializing in professional communication, your endeavor to impart the significance of verbal communication to your college students is pivotal. So it gives a nice little intro, and then it goes in and presents some strategies. One strategy that it gives me is interactive workshop and role play. Okay, great. I love using role play. Then it lists some of the pros. This is engaging with the students, it develops practical skills, and enhances their interpersonal skills. But it also talks about the cons. This may evoke discomfort for some students, time consuming to organize and execute. Again, great information. It presents lots of other different strategies, such as digital platforms, guest speakers, bringing them in, and it gives me the pros and cons for each of those. So again, it's presenting the information of what I want in the specific format that I asked. And it's using that custom instruction in order to give me the information exactly the way that I want it at the right level. Again, academic tone, giving me pros and cons. So it's very interesting that it's using that. So this is great in that this would save us time because no longer do we need to use a more advanced prompt formula when we ask a question where we're giving it context, where we're saying, okay, act as a university instructor, act as, this level for the grade. So again, this is going to save us time by having this type of more advanced prompt, at least the aspects that we want to use usually within our custom instructions. But let's think about that a bit further. So if we look at sort of another section of what it responded with, here it also gives us pros and cons dealing with AI integration in verbal communication. So I didn't ask it for AI integration and verbal communication, but it put this in because, again, I talked a lot about AI within my customs instructions, right? And the custom instruction, I talked about how this was a major part of what I do. This is one of my hobbies. So now it's using that in whatever response that it gives me. So I might not necessarily want that, right? Because I mean, this is somewhat good information, but this is detracting from what I specifically asked. So what I would need to do is go back into my custom instructions and take out some things that I don't want it to use every single time it's giving me an answer. So it's important to really think about the custom instructions and give it the specific information, just the specific information that it needs in order to have the right prompt so that it can effectively give you the answers that you want. So you might want to put some information in there, you might want to take out some information. So in this case, I wouldn't necessarily put all the stuff about AI because I don't want that for every single answer that it gives me. I do want it to have this perspective of university instructor, of an academic tone, of the pros and cons. Those are all very effective that I want with virtually all of my responses from my prompts. But some of the other things I think I'm going to edit and manipulate it in some way to make it that much more effective for me. So let's look at some other ways that we can use these customs instructions that OpenAI recommends. One way deals with code generation. So this is if you're using it for assistance with writing different types of code, you can tell it the specific language that you want it to use, meaning like, oh, I want it to be in JavaScript or HTML or some other advanced language. You would tell it within your custom instructions to always provide you the information, the result in that language. Now, this would also work in a regular language, right? So instead of English, I could say, give me the response in Spanish. So you see in this example that it's actually giving me a response in Spanish. So again, this can be manipulated in different ways, all to make it more effective for you. Now, it also has this other example of use where it says grocery list, right? So you could, within your customs instructions, like in this one, it says that I live with a family of 4 children and a wife. So now when I ask it for information, so it says, what should I get in the store for pizza tonight? So now when it's giving the ingredients list and the amount that it needs to get, it'll incorporate the information that it was given as far as the instructions, the custom instructions, where it said, I have 4 children and a wife. So this is powerful, and this can be definitely usable for us in that we could put in certain things or limitations about our class. We could say, oh, I have 25 students. I have students with some special needs, or I have students, half of them are male, half of them are female, or my students have English as a second language, all sorts of different specifics that I could give it as part of my customs instructions that now the system can use, ChatGPT can use when it's giving you the response. This will then save you time as far as clarification or adding more to your prompt over and over each time that you're asking it a question. So again, that's a very powerful way that you can use it. Lots of different things to think about. What I strongly recommend is that you go in and play around with those instructions, test it out, toggle them, try different ways of putting it together. That way you can see how effective it is when you're asking it all these questions. Again, very powerful tool that can save you time and can make you that much more effective. And remember, learning is for life.